Nathan Winkler. Thank you so much for emailing your question. His question was, how do I effectively get my business name into Google search? In other words, when someone Google searches keywords that have to do with my business, how do I get my business info to come up first and also come up on the map section so inquiries can find us on the map? Colton, I think this is in your wheelhouse, so please take it from here and explain the answer to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, by the way. Probably the first way and the best way is to actually start with Google Maps itself. You can actually go in and submit your business information to them directly. They oftentimes have a verification process, either digitally, or they'll send a postcard to the physical address of the business. Once that's claimed, most of the time you'll start showing up right away. Past that, you can take part in things like Yext or citation building services to help grow your network, essentially, and help grow its popularity within Google Maps. And then obviously, if you have a website, you can help grow that organically as well by doing link building and having your content tailored towards those keywords that you were talking about there. So there's a few different ways to do it, and obviously if you do them all or work on one piece at a time and kind of jump around, it all starts working together in a collaborative way to just give you a better online experience for all of your users.
Thank you so much, Colton. I appreciate that answer. And I hope that that kind of helps you, our attendees, kind of better understand how Google search really works in terms of trying to get your specific business name listed up there. One thing that also kind of goes in line with his question that I think Colton could really help us learn a little bit more is about link building. Because of course, that's how you build your authority online. So can you help us understand the importance of link building, or is it outdated? Is that something that we still need?
Sure. So there's a lot of notion within the industry that link building is either dead or going away, and I can assure you that that is false and just not true. Link building is still the #1 priority when it comes to figuring out who is popular and why. And Google still uses it very much as a strong signal to determine who should show up and who shouldn't. So link building is still very much a necessity in the online world. How you do link building can vary. I mean, the citations like we talked about just now, those are one form. You're not necessarily doing it for the link, but it's a happy byproduct of it. So you can get a link going that route, obviously improving your maps as well. And then there's other things you can still do that are still effective as long as you have some moderation in there. So things like your online business directories, where it's just a generic directory, those are still valid. You just don't want to you don't want to create 1,000 of those. You just want to create maybe 1, 2, 5 a month and just kind of keep going down that route. You can also partake in things like guest blogging, where you outreach to another site that's relevant within your industry and basically try to host some content on their site in exchange for a link as well. That's probably the most common and proven method there is today within the industry. And then there's other things like buying a service such as Boostability that can help you do those, or going with somebody else as well, again in the hopes of getting you more links. So there's a lot of different ways. Social is another way, and obviously I'll let the other two speak to that a little bit more, but you can go out there, put your name out there. Obviously, if you have something viral or something that people like, they can also post it on their sites. That's another way of link building. So it's not just strictly going out and trying to build links. Sometimes it's just trying to get your content in front of people that really want to share that and that do like that and that would like to give that same content to their audience. So there's a lot of stuff, but the overall point of it all is that link building is still very much a necessity. There's lots of ways to do it. You don't have to start at the top end. In fact, most of the time I would recommend start at the bottom end. If it starts working, great, that's where you need to go. If you do that for a little bit at the bottom end, doing those directories, maybe some social bookmarking, maybe a little bit of comment link building, going onto sites and commenting, trying to get a link. If those methods aren't working, then you can step it up to something else, and maybe you need to invest a little bit more there or spend a little bit more time doing that. So yeah, there's a few different ways of doing it, just kind of went over a few, but still very much important, especially in 2017.
Yeah, just to give a couple of my 2 cents there, absolutely on the link building side. Colton, being the director of SEO strategy for Boostability, does a lot of that strategy not only for our clients, but information for Boostability as a company themselves. But then on the social media and the blogging side, I take care a lot of link building relationships. So there are 2 different routes of essentially going there, and we have one person for Boostability's own personal SEO that goes through and make sure all of our business accounts, our local listings, things like that are all correct and always up to date and manages that information. Whereas as the communications, the marketing side of it, what I can do for link building essentially is make sure that all of our social media profiles are optimized and correct, but also I'm the one that manages all the relationships with other websites. So we have a lot of writing relationships with other marketing sites throughout the entire world, actually. And we regularly, our CEO, our VP, myself, and even Sunny here on the call, and Colton, we all regularly publish to these other sites each month. We give our feedback, we talk about something that's really important, particular to that site, and then our own profiles, our author profiles, will say that we work for Boostability. It links back to Boostability, and I just did all the annual reports for our content at Boostability, and therefore I was able to pull specifically a report that showed me the impact of our guest articles we've done on other websites and what that's done for our SEO. And in many respects, some of them are still gaining momentum. SEO does take time, but some of our longer relationships absolutely have us ranking on the first page for keywords that we weren't previously ranking for. And so building those relationships, the better the website, the better the link. You don't want to necessarily go right anywhere or on somebody's personal WordPress account. You want to be able to write for other well-known publications, because that's what really gets you the clicks and gets you the notification and what they call link authority, which I'm sure Colton can speak all about.
Absolutely.
So Colton, we did have a question again about link building. Someone asked, any way to prioritize where to link build first?
Yep, absolutely. There's a few different ways to look at that, and it really depends on where you are. So to start off, I guess I would say the most basic way is doing some simple report. You can go to something like Moz. They have a free report with their Site Explorer. There's other tools, like one called the Link Research Tools as well. And I'll put the links in below in the chat just so that everybody has those. But basically go there and start there by seeing how many links do you have? Do you have any links? If you don't have any, that's where I say, okay, at that point, let's get into the free stuff and the stuff that's pretty easy, like the directories, the social bookmarks, and then even trying to find other relevant sites within the industry. So these could be news sites, or maybe it's a company that makes things for your industry, whatever it might be, and going on to maybe their blogs and stuff and trying to comment and get a link back. Start there if you don't have any links. If you're looking at your site, or you're looking at a site that you're working on, you're saying, you know what, these guys already have some authority, they already have some links, maybe they're competing in a competitive field. In that instance, that's where I would try to find, again, you could probably use more social tools for this, so like Facebook, your Twitter, your Google+. There's a few tools as well there, like BuzzSumo is a good one, and I'll put that link down there below too. And basically you can find out who is writing what kind of content and what's getting shared and all that good stuff, and you can try to either mimic that content or create your own version of that content, and obviously produce that and share that. But probably the biggest thing there, going back to if you already have an established profile, is finding those people that can really take your content and share it with their audience, and essentially you want to share it with the influencers for your industry. And those typically aren't going to be like other dentists. It might be in some cases, or somebody that's directly related to your field, but usually it's somebody who is prominent that maybe does conferences, maybe does webinars, maybe does video, stuff like that. So there's quite a few different routes of going about it, but very first thing, check your backlink portfolio, see if you have any links, see what kind of links you have. If you have some of the basic stuff, try to move on to something more advanced. And then if you don't have that, obviously start at the beginning and go from there. You can also, I mean, just so that everybody is aware, probably the biggest thing when it comes to online marketing, at least for the SEO side of things, is your competition. They are your greatest source for information. So in this same scenario, if you're saying, you know, I have no clue as to where to start for link building, use those same free tools, run them with your competitors, and I guarantee you, you'll find about, you know, 5+ places that you can go and do links today, right now, whatever it might be. And you can even look at those links and say, okay, that was you know, a piece that probably took them a long time to do. All right, I'll set that off to the side. I'll come back to that one later, maybe try to build the same link, whatever it might be. But use your competition in the same way that you might judge your own website, and you can get a lot of great ideas going that route.
Yeah, absolutely. I know as the director of marketing strategy that, and something, you know, a million years ago, we won't say how long, back in the day when I was doing my master's degree, benchmarking and studying other companies that are similar to yours is a regular practice and definitely something I highly recommend. I always tell people if it works for you, it likely works for your audience, because most people run a business or are part of a business that they're proud of, and therefore, in a sense, you are your own audience. So if it's something you would click on, if it's something you would be impressed with, if it's anything like that, then that's most likely going to be congruent with the rest of your audience. And just kind of go with your gut there and then test.
Thanks so much. And Kaz, I think this next question actually ties really well into what you were just talking about in terms of your expertise, because someone asked, Chris Bill asked, please speak to the need for video in improving SEO. So I think that's all you.
Yeah, absolutely. Video is one of those things where it's, especially now, we're entering a very competitive space for video. Anyone that's been strongly video before now has kind of robbed everyone else of the limelight, but there's still a chance to get in there before everybody figures it out. So it's kind of like the dawn of Facebook, or, you know, those days before people really figured out how to massively utilize video. And that may seem surprising because YouTube and how-to videos have been around forever, but when it comes to monetizing and companies utilizing it as engagement, it's becoming more and more of the center of a company's plan. And video is absolutely amazing for link building because it is so highly engaging. Far more than any other social media type, you're getting more views, you're getting more comments, you're getting more likes. And there's so many different types of video platforms now. So you can do live videos, live YouTube, live Facebook, live Periscope. You can Snapchat, all of these things. And you may not think of it as, oh, that's link building, because you think of something like Snapchat and you're like, oh, but I can't include a link. But the thing is that it's kind of a round robin. It goes in a circle. So when you're doing things like that, it forces people to search for you and search for your content. And if you've been properly link building across several different sites, business profiles, several things are going to show up on the front page of Google, for example, not just your website, but let's say Google reviews and your Facebook page and things like that. So even if somebody starts at an organic search, any of those websites, clicking on that and then clicking to you is, consider it like points. It's another point for you. So it's one of those things where everything you do on social media, everything you do with video eventually leads to a link that leads to you, and you get a point. And another great thing about videos is that when you are doing guest relationships, writing on other websites, appearing on other interviews, talking in other podcasts, things like that. That's always a fantastic opportunity for that same thing. If you're actually publishing to someone else's site, a video is super fantastic to get people to pay attention to your posts over any other post, because there aren't very many people doing guest writing relationships that also do video. So that would be very unique to actually take the time to post a video to someone else's website. And people aren't doing that right now, and so that will absolutely drive traffic from a high authority website back to your website, and another point, another point, another point. So if you consider it like a point system, the more points you have and the higher quality of those points, the more link authority you're getting and the more SEO you get out of it. So the higher you end up in search rankings, but also the more often you get searched. So social media, videos, all of those social aspects that you do increase your searching, and that's why so many people argue that it's so hard to figure out the true return on investment for social media, because a lot of people, rather than clicking directly on something, they're just going to see that brand visibility, and eventually they're going to search for you rather than click on you. And that's why you keep doing it. You keep doing it even if you do not see the direct line from here to there. You keep doing it because of brand visibility, and when they search for you, there you go. You're getting points. You're getting those links. You're building those clicks.
Thanks so much, Kaz. That was a great, great extensive answer, and I hope that really answered everyone's questions related to video. The next one, Colt and I would say this is definitely for you because it is related to Yext. Lindsay asked, how useful is a company like Yext? I've had some bad experiences with their reps on the phone. They make it sound like my company will never be ranked high on Google without them. Is there another company like them to use instead?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yext, just so that everybody can kind of understand what Yext actually provides, so they essentially have direct APIs into a lot of prominent local listings. So like Yahoo Maps, as an example, is 100% controlled and directed with Yext's data. Now what that means for somebody like Yext is that if you give them your information, they can share that amongst their entire network, which last time I checked it was like 75 sites. About 60 of those would be what we would consider prominent or well-known. Things like Google, or not Google, but things like Bing, Yahoo, Apple Maps, so on and so forth. So the only specialty that they have there is that they have those direct API connections, which means that you give them your information and it can go, and usually it's all syndicated or spread around evenly within about a week, and then obviously the information is guaranteed. That's part of their feature, is that the information you give them is going to be guaranteed for the most part across all those websites. So as far as direct and immediate impact, it is worth the money. I just have to put it that way. Can't speak for the reps or anything like that, but I can say that at least for what you're getting from an organic standpoint, it's going to be solid. If you don't want to go that route, or if you're saying, hey, I've been on the internet for a long time, or this is something that I want to do maybe a little bit cheaper, whatever it might be, there's other services. Boostability does have a citation service as well. But there are services specifically that all they do is citations. One of those would be White Spark, I believe. I'll put the link in the chat as well. But basically, that's a company where all they do, 100%, they deal with local, they deal with citations, and that is it. That is their entire business model. And they actually have more, just like Boostability. Because we submit manually, because we're not held only API connections, we literally have hundreds of sites that we can submit you to for a citation. And so people who even partake in Yext and what they offer will still come to services like Boostability or White Spark to essentially continue growing that citation list for their business. So as far as Yext, all they do is citations. They just happen to have a direct API that they've built, and that's what makes them unique. If you're okay paying whatever their fee is, I would recommend them just because it is immediate and it's something that's basically guaranteed. If it is one of those things where either you've been at it for a long time or you're working with a really established business and they don't necessarily need that immediate jump start, then I would recommend something like Boostability or, like I said, WhiteSpark, where all they do is just citation building services.
And I have added WhiteSpark into the chat section, as well as another citation-focused site that I am aware of, which is Bright Local. Both of those do very much the same thing that Colton was talking about with WhiteSpark. Colton, the next question is kind of a combo question. I'm going to combine two because they're both related for you, related to blogging. Now, Cicely and Justin both want to know about blogging. Cicely asked, do you think blogging is still an effective way to boost SEO? And that kind of goes in line with Justin's question, which is there value in having your own blog and linking targeted keywords to specific pages?
Yeah, I mean, blogging is still highly effective. It's lost its lackluster just because it doesn't have kind of like what Kaz was saying, where it doesn't have that immediate impact or that immediate benefit. But over time, you can imagine if you blog every other day or even just once a week, that is 52 new pages, or what would that be, 365 divided by 2, 130, 132, 133. You're essentially creating more portals for your website. Obviously, you're helping build your expertise as well. And honestly, the great thing about blogs, which I think a lot of people have forgotten about, is that blogs give you the opportunity to build a following, as well as to go after those fringe, weird phrases that maybe aren't common to your business or your industry. And again, that's going to go back to showing your expertise and showing that you really know what you're talking about. But it's also going to give you a chance to essentially broaden your horizon when it comes to getting people. Another really good benefit, and you see this a lot with large companies that either have a force or a dedicated team for blogging, but basically out of the blogging you start to get into the realm of discovery or research, where you're getting people and you're finding people that might not even be ready to buy today, but you know what, when they're ready to buy in 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, if you've helped them out a few times, or if they've come to your site because they needed help with something, and you've had a blog about it or whatever it might be, they are a lot more likely to buy from you and visit your site and come back to you time and time again. And that's just essentially, that's feeding your pipeline later on down the road. So something like real estate, especially if you're helping people out, whether they're in the buying process or that discovery process, it's a lot more likely that they're going to go with you to essentially close things, finish things out, and obviously get you the real return that you need. So when it comes to blogging, I can't underrate it. It still is very much valuable. Like I said, it doesn't have the direct oomph that it used to have. But it still is very much a powerful tool to not only help your immediate users and your immediate site, but also to help grow and expand your influence within your industry and your area. So I still recommend it. I still think it's a powerful tool.
That's true. I actually did some research recently in which I think it was Statista.com said that after doing 2016 reviews of blogging, that websites that have on average 450 to 1,000 pages, so that obviously means websites with a blog, their sales conversion rates, so their ability to close a sale is 16% higher than those that do not have a blog and are just trying to sell. So 16% sounds like a low number, except for when you're considering it as a sales conversion rate. Like, that's ridiculously high for a sales conversion rate. So it's like another one of those things that a lot of people are like, I don't see the direct results, I don't see how this is working for me. And it's just social media, blogging, you're all building a voice, you're building trust, and you're building brand, and it's the foundation to be able to operate in any other way. There are some unique instances where you'll have a business type that maybe doesn't benefit strongly from a very active blog. You know, maybe you're a plumber and there's so many articles you can write about plumbing, but at the same time there are a lot of creative and interesting ways that you can make that happen. You can continue, especially with video, to just share that information. And my biggest thing that I can tell people is that don't withhold anything. The more information that you put out there, the more information you shared. A lot of people call it transparency, but just your willingness to give away the cow for free, as they say. You know, just give that information out there. You think, okay, that's going to hurt my business because I've given them all the answers. I've told them how to fix their own toilet, so why would they call me as a plumber? But it works. There's just something mentally about the human psychology that if you're giving out all that information, people find you interesting. They come back. They continue to come back. They visit your website repeatedly. They search for you, and they just trust you. It doesn't matter if you're more expensive than the next guy. They feel like they have a relationship with you. So in order to really do really great communication, great content, great social media, great link building, don't just do it to do it, but also do it to share that information and create a relationship. If you're doing it to represent your company as somebody's best friend in a sense, then you're going to have way more success than the next guy.
Thank you so much, Colton and Kaz, for really explaining that very well and the importance and showing the importance of blogging. So Kaz, I think this next question is right down your alley. Barbara asks, it has to do with social media accounts. What if you are utilizing multiple platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and blogs, yet you find consistent content creation and linking is not eliciting the traffic you want? How can one improve visibility?
Absolutely. So that's the problem that we all have. I'm sorry about the coughing. Been a little sick, but that's definitely a problem. Even myself that I have, where I'm just like, okay, Facebook says I got this many links, Instagram says I got this many links, and then I look at my website and I'm like, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. And one thing is that each respective website calculates what a click means in a different way. So there will be some differences there. And then things like analytics, Facebook analytics, Google analytics, all of it isn't necessarily perfect because it all operates very differently. The way that I track it the best that I can is I use UTM links. I use unique links as often as I can, because that gives me a more realistic view as to how many people are clicking on something. And if you've done all of that and you're still experiencing, you're still feeling like you're just not getting the power that you need to, unfortunately, the more popular these websites become, like Facebook being extremely mainstream, the more you have to pay to play. The Facebook algorithm is a pretty sticky algorithm. You can find more about Facebook ranking factors, very similar to Google ranking factors. Facebook is considered another search engine, actually the third largest one right now. So you have to play the game. And Facebook ranking factors, things that boost it are having all of the information filled out on your business profile, logging into your business profile daily. So even if you answer your comments and do your posts from something else like a social media tool, log into your account daily. Try to post something there live on the Facebook page, because the truth is they've built out their algorithm to be specific to whether or not you're active. And if you're not part of Facebook clicking on ads that make them money, then they're not going to be as keen to show your page because you yourself aren't active. And it's kind of, it goes in a circle. Likewise, in order to get your page to be seen more, your page, part of their algorithm update that they did a couple of years ago, which is an unfortunate but very realistic update, is that your page will only, despite who follows it, your page will only be shown to people who are visiting it or engaging with it regularly. So you might have 20,000 followers, but you only have 400 people seeing it if those 20,000 followers haven't recently liked or commented on something, and you're going to have to run engagement campaigns in order for people to start engaging and then start seeing that information in their list. And then in this last year, Facebook took it even further to say that both in Instagram and in Facebook, since it's the same company now, that they essentially won't show your page unless somebody is engaging or somebody subscribes. So in addition to following your page, they have to go into a special link and say, please show this in my newsfeed. And it's really kind of unfair. But that goes along with link building through PPC. Very similar aspects there is that it's going to be the hardest and most competitive on Google, as it is with Facebook. So what you want to do if you really want to start building momentum without a large budget, you go to the places that aren't necessarily mainstream or popular yet. And since Facebook and Instagram are fairly tied together, it's hard to separate those out, but you can get a great deal of traction, a great ROI from Twitter. Twitter is still extremely active, but it's not as mainstream as Facebook. So advertising is a lot more cost effective, and I definitely, building links, especially since Twitter is shown in Google search results, we use Twitter a lot. I would say Twitter is probably our main social media focus, and that Facebook is more about just having that brand visibility for people that search us specifically on Facebook. So we have some tools on our Boost You on our website that talk about, especially on the PPC side, it talks about mainstream PPC versus going to these second level PPC places and advertising there. And you can compare that information similarly to just organic. It doesn't have to be paid. So if you're not having a great deal of success because of how incredibly just too many people on Facebook, too much competition, then try these other places. Depending on the type of business you have, you might want to try doing live videos. You might want to try doing live Twitter sessions. These different places that aren't as competitive in the space. That would be my main suggestion there.
In tying into what Kaz just said about engagement, and that being one of the major factors in a lot of these algorithms, in terms of, like, if you have any listings on Yelp, if any of your businesses are using Yelp, anything like that, one thing to be aware of is that with Yelp's algorithm, which people tend to have not so fun experiences with Yelp, one of the biggest things is that even if you have reviews on there and you're gathering reviews, and if any of your customers leave reviews on there, the reviews are more likely to stick and remain in kind of the unfiltered featured section of Yelp if they are active and engaged. So if you decide to do a review campaign or anything like that to build your online profile and to build your online reputation across platforms, whether it's Google, Yelp, or anywhere else, you want to make sure, to do a little bit of research on your customers. And if you have customers, existing customers that are already active Yelpers, those are the people that you would want to target initially and say, hey, we see that you can ask them this if you send out customer surveys. If you go on Yelp, if you like to leave reviews on Yelp, please review us on Yelp, because if they have either a large number of reviews on Yelp or have a large circle of friends on Yelp, those specific reviews are more likely to stick in the unfiltered section and will be used in calculating your star review on Yelp. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about activity and engagement when you're building your online profiles. All right, so let's see. One of our next questions, let's see, we have so many. Thank you so much once again for submitting your questions. We've had so many people submitting fantastic questions, and I truly hope that you guys are getting great insights from here. If you have questions about any of the links that we have been talking about in the past, we've tried to add them to the chat section of the webinar so you can see them there, but we will also make sure to have all of those links sent to you via email so that you guys can have them for reference later. We've also had a few people asking about recordings of the webinar. Yes, this webinar is being recorded, so don't stress too much if you have to hop off or if you happen to miss something that we said. We are recording it, and there will be a recording available to you as soon as we are finished with this webinar and are finished processing it. So once again, the links are available in the chat section here. You will also get a list of them in your email as well as a link to the recording later. So just so that you guys are aware, so that I can answer some of the other questions that have come through related to this specific webinar. Now, has this been helpful for you guys? I sure hope so. If it has, please say yes in the chat box. We'd love to know that this information is insightful for you. But let's go ahead, because you guys are here, we want to use your hours and minutes to the best of our ability. We have a question that Colton can definitely answer here. It is from Philip, and it is about listing a remote office. So they said they have a central office with a remote location business site. So clarification on that, it says they run events in different cities, but their central office is located in California. If we're running an event in Dallas, Texas, would we list our location in California or Texas? Or would we create the business name in California and the event name in Texas?
I think that's a good one, definitely, for Colton. So I guess my additional question there would be, the business only exists in Texas, or I mean in California, or do you have a business entity in Texas? Because if you don't have an actual business entity in Texas, regardless of where your event is, you should list your actual core office or nearest office if you have multiple ones.
Colton, are you with us?
Yeah. So one thing, just to start, and obviously answer the questions Kaz got there, because that's going to help. But at least given the scenario that you've provided, more likely than not, you're not going to want to essentially establish yourself as a local business, which means you're not going to be targeting things like Google Maps and whatnot. However, that doesn't mean that you can't compete organically. And probably the best way to do that is obviously have like your home page, have your About Us, and all that should be targeted with your physical corporate address. And then outside of that, you can tack on either event pages or area event pages or something to that effect onto your website, and essentially target the areas. And you can target either events if you're trying to attract business, or you can maybe produce what the event is, trying to get people to go to the event. Whatever it might be, that's going to help as well. Another thing that you can do, again, not really utilizing the maps per se, but you could include the address if you know where the event's going to be held onto your web page, and that can help it to gain some traction locally if people are either searching around that, or if they're typing in things like events in this area, that can help as well. But in some cases, you might have to use other services, maybe other directories, maybe a Chamber of Commerce type thing, where you can enlist, hey, we're doing this event over here. So there's a few different ways, but it sounds like for this scenario, your website's going to be your best friend. Probably not going to be maps heavy by any means, just because it is against Google's term of service to have a remote office that isn't directly yours. Now there is, and I will say on that, there is kind of a caveat, or something that you could kind of maybe play the system a little bit, where if it's a physical address, you can get mail there, it's not registered to any other business, and it's something that you kind of have secured for a while, meaning like 3 months plus. In that scenario, you might be able to use Google Maps and kind of go that route. However, you are treading, kind of on thin water there or thin ice. So in that scenario, you may get flagged. It might get taken down, but it's something you could try. It's free. Doesn't take very long to do if you kind of meet that criteria. But outside of that, I would really focus on your website specifically, running those keywords onto those pages, and then obviously trying to accomplish what you're trying to do, whether it's drum up business or trying to drum up people to go to an event.
Thank you, Colton. I think this one ties really well into that previous question. My company has several offices and sales teams travel the surrounding service areas. Would noting the service area hurt national online sales?
Say that for me one more time.
It says they have several offices and sales teams that travel the surrounding areas, the surrounding service area. So would noting the service area hurt national online sales?
No. I might just have like a small section. So if you have your, let's say your primary service or your product, you can either have a byproduct of that page saying like, here's what we do locally or around here. You could even house that underneath like your About Us page or your Contact Us page. So you don't have to always tack onto the direct service page. You can always have it be its own separate entity. However, if you're running something national, let's say that you're selling a product national, you're also trying to sell it locally, you can always tack on some information to that same page. It's not going to really detract from it as much as it's going to expand what that page is essentially eligible for. I will say you kind of have to keep some, weighted ratios in the back of your mind when you're doing that. If you have more local content than you do, let's say, national or more generic content or broader content, then there's a good chance that, yeah, it might get cannibalized because the page is mostly about something local. Whereas if you're targeting something national, if you kind of do the opposite where you have a large ratio of the content on that page is dedicated towards national or something broader, and just a little bit of that dedicated towards the local hemisphere, then you should be totally fine on the national, but you might not have as much oomph on the local. So my first recommendation, just to summarize that, is probably tack on that information somewhere else where it would make sense, like an About Us or a Contact Us type page, or even if you have like a local service page or something to that effect, and then you can keep those two realms separate. Make sure your keywords are tagged and tracked correctly on both of those pages, and obviously make sure that your content for those pages are honed to the specific audiences abroad. One has the option to maybe call a rep, the other one really doesn't, but they can totally buy it here or whatever it might be. And so there might be two different audience types there. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I would start there. Keep them separate if you can't, or if you're just saying, you know what, it's just a little bit, I just want to note it. Then yeah, you can tack it onto your main product or service page.
Thank you so much, Colton, for that answer. We have yet another question, but really fast. If you guys happen to have any questions that you send or submit to us and we run out of time on this webinar, don't despair, because we are live tweeting this webinar as well. You can use the hashtag 2017, that's 2017 Boost Webinars, and we will be continue live tweeting where you can ask questions. Any additional ones you may think of if you happen to think of something after we close. Again, I've added it to the chat, so feel free if you have any additional questions, either here towards the end that we don't get to, or if you think of anything later on, you can always hop onto Twitter, hashtag 2017 Boost Webinars, and we will continue to try and answer your questions there. Okay, moving on to the next question. We have Ibad said, a question from Ibad Sadiq. I do apologize if I happen to butcher your name. He has a question about prioritizing kind of tasks. There are a lot of things that could be done to increase traffic and sales for my online retail business, but can you provide insight on how to prioritize what to do? He says, my resources are limited, so I want to know how to optimize my time. design, SEO, social media, blogging, newsletters, promotions. In other words, what is a strategic order to do these actions?
So I'll take a stab first just because I want to be the first one to say. Not everybody might agree with me, but essentially from my end, and this is mainly on the SEO heavy end, obviously I think Kaz is going to have something great to add to this, maybe even Sunny there on the social media side. But from my end, I say tackle the technical issues first. Doesn't really make you any good to send people to a website that's broken or not working or has bad user experience. It means that they're never going to come back, and they're most likely not going to share that with friends and family. So make sure the technical sides are taken care of. Past that, I would definitely work on content, whether that's blogging or maybe even improving your specific product pages, adding more content, maybe being more descriptive with your titles, your descriptions, so on. That's going to be essentially the blood for, for powering the Google engine, so to speak. So I'd start with technical content, and then past that, I would start to get into more of the social, even the PPC if you're going that route, something that's maybe more immediate. And then past that, I would get into the link building and obviously trying to get the ongoing efforts going and the long-term stuff ahead. It's kind of why it's considered long-term is just because it takes a lot and it takes time to get built up over that. So technical, content, social or immediate stuff that you can do to try to pull people in, and then I would hit on the link building past that.
I tend to agree with Colton, even though he went first. I do think making sure that people enjoy visiting your site, so him talking about the technical side and the user experience, people tend to underestimate how important that is for a user. And so often, especially in today's day and age, people are even looking at their websites from a mobile device. So also make sure that your website is mobile optimized. So I think that I would interject that into the list of technical, quote-unquote technical section that Colton mentioned, simply because the bounce rate, if your website is not optimized for mobile, is significantly higher. I believe if your website, I'll have to find the stat and I will make sure that we email it to you, but it is a staggering number when you see it, that if your website is not mobile optimized, people leave and they do not tend to come back. So in the technical aspect, please keep that in mind when you are building those out.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. I'm glad you mentioned bounce rate. That's it. If for those that don't know, bounce rate means that somebody has come to your website and without making any clicks, they just leave. They just come and go. And there's nothing like a poorly designed mobile version of your site. So even if you have what you think is a mobile-friendly template for your site, and you can view it on your phone, which is the big mistake a lot of people make. They're like, I can see my site on my phone. A lot of modern-day phones will shrink your website down to being able to be viewed on mobile, but that doesn't mean it's a mobile site. A mobile site is not only a different thing based on different ranking factors, a different search engine results, but also the way that Google Search Console will judge your mobile website has to do with the closeness of links, the amount of links, the easiness of use and whatnot. And if somebody comes to your website and they don't see it, designed in a traditional way, much like a web app, for example, if it's not just easy clicks, easy information, everything there up front, then they're going to leave. And if your bounce rate for your website is really, really high, then that's taking away from your authority as a website.
I agree with that. Speaking in addition to, building the authority, when Colton was talking about creating your content on your site, I want people to be aware that content really is, it's anything that is on your site. Anything that your customers will read or interact, so including video content, which I would really heavily push here, that don't think about content as just it needs to be a giant block of text. Think of it in terms of digestible chunks of information that my customer, my consumer, my audience can easily take and internalize and implement in whatever project, whatever thing that they want to do, whether it's researching for a consumer product that you have on your retail site, or whether it's learning about what kind of lawn care should I have if you're a landscape company. Understand that the way that you shape your content can be in many different forms, but all of that is important to ranking on Google and to your usability for your end user. All right, we are winding down to the last few minutes. Do we have any final questions from our attendees here? Because we do want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered, or at least as many as we can at this point. One question that we haven't gotten to yet is for us, it comes from Cicely, and she asks, for a startup, what is a good starting PPC budget?
For a startup PPC budget, I can speak to that, especially from the social side. I would say as much as you can, but a minimum of, I'd say, $250 to $300 in a month. But the main mistake that first-time PPC users do is that they'll put their entire budget into a campaign that they start, and then the entire budget blows without a lot of results. And what you want to do is you want to break that out. You want to be able to test and optimize. So when you're setting up a campaign, set it up, for an entire week or an entire month or something like that. What I tend to do, my best practice, is that I set things up monthly. I give it a hard monthly budget, but I also give it a daily budget, meaning that it's not going to take my entire $300 monthly budget and spend it all in one place in 2 days. So if you give it a monthly budget capping at $300 and then a daily budget of only $10 per day, then it's not going to max beyond the $10 per day. And that way, it'll spread it out across the month, and it'll give you time to log into your PPC, whether that be Facebook PPC, Twitter, or Google, to log in once to twice a week. I would say once a week minimum, to optimize. And what I mean by optimize is you're going to keep the same audience throughout a month, because audience takes more time to optimize. You need to essentially test an audience for 3 months against 2 different audiences before you decide what the better audience is. But when it comes to testing images, that's something that you can work on weekly. So when you start a campaign, you do it towards one link, you do it with one budget, you put in similar messaging, and you do 3 separate images, for example, and then you let it go for a week. And the next week you log in, you check it, you see, okay, this image has 2,000 clicks, this image has 4. So you turn off the one that has 4 because it's spending money, but it's not doing anything for you. And then you let it go another week, and on that 3rd week of the month, you go in and you check the 2 remaining images. You do the same thing. You turn off the one that's least successful, and then in that 4th week, you try and maybe optimizing the way that you've said things, and give it a different call to action, a different flair or something like that. And then you essentially have your entire $300 budget that you've spent. You've checked in a minimum of once per week. And by optimizing that often, you're getting the highest return on investment. Too many people are a one and done, set it and forget it type of PPC planner. It literally is like checking email. You set it, and then it takes 5 or 10 minutes each week to just look at it and optimize it. So if you don't do that, then you're spending money towards images or wording that isn't working for you. Whereas if you do the turning on and turning off, and by the end of the month you have what's working for you as the only thing that's running, then you're putting your dollars where it really counts. You're putting it where it works for you. So that's just something that I highly, highly stress for any PPC user. So you don't waste any money, especially as a small business. You don't have money or time to waste. So if you need help with that, I'm often answering PPC questions, so you can always text them to or tweet them to us, or you can email me directly.
Thank you so much for answering that PPC question. PPC, I know, is kind of, it's one of those things that it's a necessary evil when you're starting out, and so often the small business owners just, you know, it's not one of those things that you think about, but you have to do. So I'm so glad that you were able to give some great insights into how to start that, and a good budget that I hope the small business owners here in attendance don't feel too stressful about, you know, like a $300 max budget. I hope they don't cringe too much at that dollar amount, but I think that's a good benchmark that I think they'll start to get good results. Now we are at the end of our webinar hour. So once again, I want to thank everyone that was able to attend, and thank you once again to everyone who submitted your questions. We do hope that the answers that we've provided today were helpful for you and helpful for everyone who has been on this webinar today. Once again, if you want to chat with us or if you want to connect with us in any way, you can always follow us on Twitter. Her Twitter handle is RUWithKaz. Colton Miller's Twitter handle is HecticC, hectic_C is his Twitter handle. My Twitter handle, Sunny Nielsen, is the Jolly Polly because I am Polynesian, so that kind of fits there. But please feel free, find us on Twitter. If you have any additional questions, you can always tweet to us. You can always tweet to Boostability. We are happy to answer your questions, but we are going to close out this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you will join us again on our next webinar. So thank you very much, and we will see you soon.